Xpeng's G6 is going global. It's already in Australia, it's already in some European countries, and now the brand is saying that it's going to be launching in the UK early in 2025. And I have to admit that when I first drove this car in 2023 in China when it was first launched, it was on the top of my wish list. I absolutely loved it. Now, after driving it for a few days, I still really like it, and I think you should consider it among your top choices. Forget Model Y Juniper. Here is why you should consider the G6 in 2025. Today I would like to do something a little bit different and start with the tech and spec. Of course, Xpeng calls itself a tech company, not a car company, which we'll understand a little bit more about later. But for most of Xpeng's customers, the tech is a huge draw. So the biggest example of this is probably its XNGP. And the brand calls this a driver assistance function, but actually it does so much more than just assist the drivers. In fact, I'll turn it on right now. It does pretty much all of the driving for you. So you give it your destination if you're using your navigation, and it will take you there. It will do your turn signals, it will do your merging, it will do lane changing, absolutely everything. Yesterday I drove around 200 kilometers, and I would say at least 90% of the journey was done in NGP, which is great. And it's not perfect, but it's a continuously improving service. And Xpeng are very proud of their ability to roll out these updates, especially in Europe. The auto parking function is also very nice. I've used auto parking in a few different cars, and I would say that the one in the Xpeng G6 is certainly one of the quicker and more efficient ones I've used. So the story behind the G6 perhaps isn't the most original one. Basically, once upon a time, there was an EV that ruled over all of the land, and that was the Tesla Model Y, which was also the best-selling EV in China for a number of months. So many brands tried to figure out the formula behind this kind of winning combination, and part of this was this kind of coupe SUV shape. So you kind of have the practicality of an SUV, but still kind of looks good, still kind of have a decent drag coefficient. So yes, it's another coupe SUV, and it certainly borrows something of its shape from the Tesla Model Y. We have a front end which is very typical of the brand. We have that kind of sloped smooth hood and that long LED light strip that goes across the front. You're probably thinking you've seen this before, but actually Xpeng was one of the first brands to do this, and it's now copied by almost every single Chinese EV brand. Personally, I don't mind the look of the G6. I think it does the best it can to kind of hide its shape and its size. And those 20-inch wheels, which come as standard, definitely help to do this. It has a drag coefficient of 0.248, which isn't the best we've seen, but it's still pretty good. So one thing I don't like about the design of this car is those black lines that go around the edges of the wheel arches. And now I've seen it, I can't unsee it, unfortunately. Maybe this isn't something that bothers you, but for me, it's something which really annoys me. It also has roof rack fixtures on the top if you are one of the more adventurous types. So is a frunk absolutely necessary with an EV? Well, the G6 doesn't have one, but it does have a pretty large boot, 570 liters. And although it has a kind of coupe profile, kind of cuts down at the back a little bit, it doesn't cut into the roofline too much. It can also come with a parcel shelf you can use to cover your stuff if you're worried about them getting stolen. So the interior, much like the exterior, is very typical of the brand. They kind of figured out what they can do very well, and I think it's done very well in here. I have to use that word practical again. There's not too much excess, and a lot of the materials are very easy to wipe down if you have a dirty dog like me, or perhaps children. We have some mixes of textures, from the kind of smooth, kind of like faux leather material we have here to some kind of suede looking material. I feel like it's a nice balance inside the cabin here, and the overall feel is really nice and clean. And while this white that I have in this car here does look very nice, I feel like over time this will gradually kind of fade and kind of pick up some kind of coloring. So if I were you, I would go with a darker color perhaps. We have an 18 speaker sound system, as well as one big subwoofer, which I just saw in the back. We have a 15-inch central infotainment system here, which might not be better for navigation purposes, but for watching movies, it fits that 16:9 ratio much better. So when you're charging, you want to put on a movie, this is great. With those 18 speakers, amazing experience. In Europe, this already comes with things like YouTube and Netflix and Disney already on the car, so you can expect the same in the UK. We have a 10.2-inch, very kind of high definition driver's display here, which can display your key information and also some map data. This is very high quality, so you can actually see a lot of what you need on this screen here. And it kind of is sunken into the dashboard, which I think is really great. And I think it's very thoughtful. You see a lot of drivers' infotainment systems, which just kind of look like they're just kind of stuck on after the fact. Here, it kind of, you can barely notice it. The passenger over that side can't even see it. It fits really well into the feel of the cabin. One thing to mention about Xpeng is that they don't do heads-up displays, which I feel is a little bit odd. You know, most cars today at least come with the option of a heads-up display, so the customer can choose if they like it or not. So it's got some big clicky buttons on the steering wheel here, which I really like. The only criticism I have of these is that they look very similar when you're driving. And of course, you know, usually the music's on the right and the kind of other functions are on the left, but sometimes it can get a little bit confusing which one you're pressing. We have two 50-watt cooled charging pads here in the middle, which is great. These work really well. And we also have some additional charging ports underneath the center aisle here. Decent sized cup holders here, and we have some nice deep storage for your belongings. But there is no glove box in this car, so I don't know where you would put your gloves. So in the back of the G6, and the room is great. I've got my seat in my driver's position here, and I have a lot of space, 6'4". I can even put my feet under the seat in front, so lots of legroom. And headroom, equally good. I've probably got 3 or 4 inches above my head, so I've got no worries about touching the ceiling here. We have a nice center armrest here. No storage, but we do have some space for cups here if we want. And we do have 2 Type-C charging ports. One thing I have to flag at the back of this car is this rear window, which is almost completely useless. Doesn't look very small when you're out on the outside here, but because it's at an angle, when you're sitting all the way in the front here, you can see almost nothing at all, and especially stuff which is quite close to your car. I feel like G6 could have gone the way of, you know, the Polestar 4, which doesn't have a rear window and just has a high definition camera. But at the same time, they're probably considering costs and trying to keep the costs as low as possible. You do get lots of visibility from your side mirrors, and it is perfectly capable of driving. But that rear view mirror, throw it in the bin, completely useless. It's an EV, so of course we have to have some kind of ridiculous 0 to 60 time. The dual motor version of the G6 will have you going from 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. The version I'm driving today will do it in a far more reasonable 5.9 seconds, which for me, I actually think 5.9 seconds is perfectly fine for overtaking, for a little bit of speed when you need it. So I think this version I'm driving today is the version that I would recommend to most people. It has a good balance of performance, comfort, as well as efficiency. Xpeng will say the G6 offers driving control, comfort, and performance, but if someone tells you something has everything, you should probably take it with a pinch of salt. The version I am in is definitely one which favors comfort and efficiency. If you go for a all-wheel drive dual motor version, you're probably looking at a better level of performance and probably a stiffer ride. So you have to consider what it is you are looking for. So when the G6 first launched in China, it shocked everyone because it came with 800-volt battery architecture as standard. So every variant of the G6 comes with 800-volt battery architecture, which means super fast charging. So why is this useful? So although some of you may be able to charge at home during the night or at work during the day, having the ability for super fast charging can be a lifesaver. If you're doing a long road trip or at the end of the week and you need a quick top up, this car can charge 300 kilometers in just 10 minutes, which is less than the time that it takes for you to go into the service station, go to the toilet, grab a coffee, or whatever. So that is great. The G6 comes with either a 66 LFP or a 85 NMC battery, which is bigger than that of the Tesla Model Ys, which in the largest single motor variant will give you up to 755 kilometers CLTC. It also has V2L, so if you're one of the more adventurous types who goes out a lot and needs to charge things using this battery, it is possible. It's hard to deny that the G6 offers a lot for those who demand practicality in their vehicle. I put it quite simply, the G6 offers a little bit more than the Tesla Model Y, but at a slightly lower price point. Of course, we need to wait and see what this new Juniper Model Y looks like and how competitive it is. But the G6 should definitely be considered, and it comes at a competitive price point in every market that it sells. For example, in the Netherlands, it sells for around €40,000, which is several thousand euros cheaper than the Tesla Model Y. In the UK, we can hope for a price between £35,000 and £45,000, which I think is a lot of car for your money. What do you think of the G6? Make sure you let us know in the comments. Be sure to give us a like and a subscribe. I'll see you next time.